Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us. My name is Maggie Abdullah. With Bennett Mercado Hospitality. I'm the Director of Sales. And with us today, we have our co-president, Beatrice Mercado, and her friends that joined her recently on a very fun trip to Nayara Alto Atacama, as well as Nayara Hangaroa in Chile. So our friends and B are going to kind of discuss their experience with everyone. And feel free to send questions to us. I did just kind of give you a couple of housekeeping items. We'll let it's a casual conversation. So we did get some of your questions ahead of time. So we're going to hope to address most of them during the conversation. But if you have any additional ones, feel free to put them in the chat or the Q&A section, and I'll read them aloud to our friends here and try and get them all answered. If we happen to run out of time, we're going to try and keep it around 30 minutes because we know everyone's busy. If we run out of time or we don't answer your question completely because we have to move on, don't worry, we can answer anything offline. So with all that said, welcome everyone. And B, would you like to introduce our friends?
Yes, thank you so much, Maggie, and hello, everybody. Good morning from Los Angeles, California. I am thrilled to have two special guests with me today. Let me introduce them to you. On the top left, we have Jen Tenzer, founder of the Soloist, which is an affiliate with Embark Beyond. So Jen is calling in from New York City. Welcome, Jen. And then the other individual we have here is my friend Jeff Torres, with Bruvion. Bruvion, affiliate member of Cassis, headquartered in LA, but Jeff now resides in Portland. So we have both coasts covered on this special masterclass session. So welcome, friends. Thank you for joining me. In the next 30 minutes, I kind of want to just go over our trip. Let me share my screen and hopefully we can draw some inspiration with our special experience together. So for those of you who followed along, we, my group and I here, went on I don't know, how many days was it, Jeff and Jen? 10-day trip to South America. And we got to experience Nayara Alto Atacama, as well as Nayara Hangaroa. Maggie, can you see my screen okay? Yeah, okay, perfect. Well, just a quick overview. For those of you who don't know, Nayara Resorts actually has a number of properties, and many of you know them intimately from Costa Rica, where we have Nayara Springs, Nayara Gardens, and Nayara Tented Camp. Bennett Mercado Hospitality has been representing Nayara Resorts since the beginning of our firm, so that's been 10 years. And then in 2020, they took over management of two really special resorts, Nayara Alto Atacama in the desert, and Nayara Hangaroa on Easter Island. You'll see here as well another addition in Central America where we also took over a property and now have Nayara Bocas del Toro. So if you want to learn about Central America, go check our YouTube channel. And we'll also do a special webinar on Bocas del Toro next month. But in terms of this specific session, we're talking about South America. So Chile. Jeff and Jen, tell me how you got to Chile, because the longest, skinniest country in South America, right, Jeff?
It is, yep, correct.
Yeah. So tell me the options of getting to Chile. How was your experience getting there from East and West Coast? Who wants to go first?
I mean, I'll go. Yeah, I mean, Santiago has amazing airlift from all over the US. LATAM is the national carrier, well served from pretty much all over, especially if you're on the West Coast. They have a nonstop from LAX. I'm up in Portland, so connecting wise, I went through Dallas. You can also go through Miami. Delta also flies from Atlanta. So a lot of options to get yourself down to Santiago. And then from there, you have to connect. And for the most part, you are going to connect domestically on LATAM. There are a few other carriers, but LATAM is by far the dominant one.
Thank you very much. So from Santiago to get to Calama, easy flight. And then once you get to Calama, it's just a little bit over an hour drive. Jen, you want to talk about that beautiful drive from Calama all the way to Atacama?
Absolutely beautiful, and it feels like an excursion in itself. I would say the drive-in is just gorgeous red rocks, and you start to get a feel for some of the landscape. I was lucky enough to see some animals, some llamas on that drive, so my welcome into Atacama was amazing. Loved it. And also, I just would note, from New York, I had a direct flight from JFK to Santiago. That quick flight then to Calama, so extremely easy.
Thank you very much.
And
And when-
Santiago Airport is actually a very nice airport. The international terminal is very nice.
Yes, I agree. And it was easy to get from international to the domestic terminal. So once you get to Atacama, you arrive at this beautiful property, Nayara Alto Atacama, just a little bit more than 40 rooms. Tell me your impressions about the setting of this property, Jen.
My impression was like blown away, to be honest. The location is really ideal because it's, as you can see in this photo, it's kind of encompassed in these gorgeous red rocks. You feel like you're in the middle of nowhere, which you pretty much are. And the rocks almost glow. The property is beautiful. It kind of meshes in with its natural habitat, which is really luxurious and beautiful. But the nice thing is that you're still very close to the town, which has a bunch of little restaurants and shops and things to do, and candidly more things to do than I had thought previously.
Thank you. Yeah, so the town of San Pedro de Atacama, just a quick 5 minute or so car ride away. We also have bicycles that guests can access if they did want to take a bicycle into town. We'll talk more about town in a minute. But in terms of guest rooms, really a small footprint, and I don't think you can go wrong with any of the categories. We have a few categories that are located close to the heart of the hotel. There's 5 rooms there, and all of them have these expansive outdoor areas where you can just appreciate the vistas of those red rocks. Also have a number of suites. So in terms of accommodations, tell me the guest profile of guests of individuals that you see staying here, Jeff.
I was actually surprised. It was broader than I expected. I mean, we saw families, we saw older couples, we saw younger couples, a few people that we think were traveling solo as well. It was a pretty broad spectrum. It wasn't just like hardcore adventure seekers. So I think that was nice. There were definitely kids running around at the pool, and it felt like a good mix of people. Thank
you. And here we're looking at this really incredible outdoor barbecue. We got to experience this at the property. Tell me about the food in Atacama, and tell me about your experience dining at Nayara Alto Atacama.
Food was fantastic. High-end dining, despite the fact that you are in a very remote region. The menu changed daily, which I loved because you'll likely be eating most of your meals on the property, especially if the clients do full board, which I would definitely recommend. And yeah, I loved the barbecue lunch that we enjoyed as well. Just really fun experience, and it kind of becomes a little bit of an activity and a meal at the same time.
Yeah, I want to highlight our chef because he's getting a lot of accolades. Really fantastic dining breakfast, lunch, dinner options here. The barbecue outdoors, they do once a week. And I think, if I remember correctly, Jen, you enjoyed all their soups. We also had really yummy pastas. So dining wise, definitely recommend it at Nayara Alto Atacama. But really, the reason you come here, in my opinion, are just the vast number of excursions. So Atacama is known as the driest desert and the highest elevation, right? And if I remember correctly, this is actually a region where companies like NASA do their testing if they wanted to go on excursions in Mars. Am I right, guys? It was kind of just
and the European Space Agency as well.
So we have our own astronomy deck, observation deck at Nayara, kind of unique and special. And for those of you who want to see Saturn, this is the place to do it. I was fortunate enough to look at this telescope, got to see a full moon that night, and saw Saturn. Tell me about this observation deck, Jeff.
Well, I believe it's the only one of its type at any hotel in the area. It's a testament to the hotel's location as well, where you're at the edge of town, but you're in this little amazing valley surrounded by these hills you can see here. So what that does, it helps keep the light from town away, but you're still close enough you can go in the town. So we climb up this little hill. It's about, maybe a 5-minute walk from the hotel. And then you have this beautiful observation area, which it's hard to tell here, but you're elevated. And they have the most powerful telescope of any local hotel. And it's kind of a very unique facility to have. And I mean, I will never forget seeing the actual, rings of Saturn in person. And I mean, we got the most amazing photo on my iPhone of the moon that people do not believe was taken off this telescope. I think it definitely was one of the highlights of the trip. Because I mean, you hear about how clear the air is down there, but once you experience it, it is pretty amazing. It's not like, I don't think people are going in unless you're really into it. It's not like the focus for a lot of people, but I think it was definitely a highlight in the end, like actually seeing all the stars. Yeah, it's amazing.
Thank you. And talking more about excursions, really, we have an entire excursion booklet of things to do. We'll prepare your traveler ahead of time on what to pack, what to bring, how to prepare for this trip. Jen Tenzer, tell me about your favorite excursion in Atacama.
It's tough to pick. I think my favorite afternoon/evening excursion was when we drove deep into the desert, into the red rocks. And it's not just rocks, it's a really diverse landscape that you get to learn more about. And the topography of where we were at that point in the day was actually giant sand dunes. And we climbed a sand dune, which was very challenging at that altitude, but really rewarding because at the top we had these unbelievable views. And then I have a very vivid memory of just running barefoot down a sand dune like a 5-year-old kid that I'll never forget. And immediately after that, we got to see the sunset with the volcano in the background. It's just like this perfect like volcano. It's hard to describe. It's just like exactly what you imagine, a perfect cone-shaped volcano. They set up all these little charcuterie boards and like luxury treats. We toasted with wine, and it was just a really special memory that I'll never forget.
I agree. And we have a photo of one of our excursions on the top right here. This was our sundowner after one of our hikes. Jeff, was there an excursion or experience that was truly memorable for you?
It was actually the same one. I mean, I had to think about this for a bit because we did see a lot, but it was the same one because it was, like Jen said, I remember, going barefoot down this volcanic sand dune, but it was unexpected because when we climbed up, it wasn't a sand dune. It was like one of these hills you see, very craggy, very rocky. And the other side was the sand dune. But it was like almost like just this visual overload where it was like sand dune, and then you're looking and there's like volcanoes in the distance, and you could see the valley floor, and it looked like it was covered in snow, but it's salt. And then all of a sudden you're like, wait, I can also see a full moon during the day, and it was just like it literally looked like it was something from another planet, which we can check off. As they told us, they actually did film part of The Mandalorian in this area. They used it for a lot of background shots and location shoots.
Thank you for sharing. Yes, I agree. So many excursions and all really remarkable. The bottom right photo here, you have the salt flats where we got to see some beautiful flamingos. I didn't realize flamingos could fly. Of course they could fly, they're birds, but we never get to see them fly. So we got to see them here. And then we also did this cactus hike. I'd say medium intensity in terms of activity level. But we traversed through an area of Atacama where we had to cross through rivers and just appreciate the beautiful vistas. One thing I want to make sure that our advisors and travelers know about is the altitude. It's quite a high altitude. Our last day, we got to see the Tatio geysers, where we were at 14,000 feet in altitude. Either of you want to talk to me about preparing for the altitude? What would you tell your travelers before coming to Atacama?
I would tell them, I would prepare. I would bring like altitude sickness pills just in case you feel like it may affect you. It did affect me that last day at the geysers. Would I not recommend someone go because of that? Absolutely not. It's kind of part of the whole adventure, but it is worth noting because I think there are some people who are particularly affected by those types of things, and they already know that about themselves. So it might not be the best destination for someone who often gets altitude sickness.
Perfect. And at the hotel, lots of water refill stations. Definitely always want to make sure that guests are hydrated. Lots of sunblock, even though it's not hot outside, that sun is quite powerful. So we want to make sure our guests are fully protected or covered. Again, our excursions guide will alert your travelers exactly what to pack, what to bring. And some of these items we also have at the hotel. So walking sticks, crampons, blankets, etc. Our guides I thought were exceptional.
Amazing. They were absolutely amazing. Yeah.
We have multilingual guides, and the experience for both Atacama and Hangaroa, you can either do group excursions or private tours. And our group excursions, really still a small number of guests doing these activities together, maybe 6 to 8 people at most. I would say ideal for your solo travelers, right too, Jen?
Yes, definitely. It's ideal because a solo traveler kind of gets the best of both worlds. They can retreat and have a lovely spa treatment, or just relax and read in their room and be truly alone when they want, or they can socialize and meet a bunch of other fellow travelers, go on a cool excursion. It's a nice mix, a balance.
And we also welcome families here. So in terms of our room categories, we can either split the king beds or add additional beds. Something to note, some of our activities are for kids age 12 and older, just because of the level of intensity and how physical some of the excursions get. Of course, guests can book private tours where we welcome all ages as well. Jeff, how many nights do you suggest for a pretty much a good stay for Atacama?
Sorry, real quick, I do want to add that, as we talk about, we're talking about education and also like age restrictions. I do think though that it's not actually an overly adventurous place. It can be, but I think it is good for people who just like soft adventure as well. I mean, I think really, if we think about it, it was more the altitude that maybe affected us on some things. But right. I mean, when you go see the flamingos, it's flat ground. A lot of the things are in the salt valleys. So it is flat ground. So I don't, think that people need to think that they need to be like in marathon or triathlon shape, to go do any of these activities. It is all accessible.
Absolutely.
As far as number of days, I mean, what were we there? 3 nights, and I think we still wanted another day.
Yeah.
I feel like 4 full days would be pretty good. I mean, there's a lot more to do there, and also I wasn't expecting San Pedro de Atacama, the town, to be so cute. That's worth going in for an afternoon, maybe a meal there. I feel like 4 days would be good. 4 full days.
Thank you. Yeah, we talked about town a little bit, but definitely great shopping. We got to see a really unique parade when we were in town that day.
While we're eating amazing ice cream.
Yeah, we're eating amazing ice cream with unique flavors. And at night, we went into town for just an evening out with the locals or global visitors, really. So if you want some blackmail footage of Beatrice, ask one of these two about our character.
Maggie, you're going to play the karaoke video right now, right? Have that queued up?
Okay. My point is, for those that ask about staying at Alto Atacama, there's definitely a town. It's really amazing. It's cute. It's got great shops, small restaurants, and things to do at night. So, okay, fantastic. So from Atacama, we went to Santiago. I want to give a shout out to our 2 other guests that you see in this photo, Liz Townsend and Loretta Ramirez, who joined us for our Atacama portion. But then the 3 of us decided to extend and go to Easter Island. Real quick, I want to give a shout out to the Singular in Santiago, who hosted us in our overnight stay. So I think, if I'm not mistaken, Jeff and Jen, we definitely want to recommend guests. You'll have to probably overnight at Santiago to catch that early morning flight to Easter Island. Lots of partners. I want to thank the Singular for hosting us that one night. And September 1st is when LATAM resumed their daily flights to Easter Island. So, you can access Easter Island on a schedule that works for you. Talk to me about how to get to Easter Island, Jen, from Santiago.
Sure. So similarly, LATAM, as you mentioned, has direct flights from Santiago to Hangaroa. It's very straightforward and easy, nonstop flight. I found
nice
it just
wide body plane.
Nice wide body plane. Thank you, Jeff. 5.5 hour flight. It's the most remote inhabited island in the world. And then when you're thinking about Easter Island, it is considered Polynesia. And the locals, they're referred to as Rapa Nui. They're derived from other Polynesian islands stemming from New Zealand. And as travel advisors, we book a lot of these Polynesian destinations, whether it's French Polynesia, Fiji, and now also Easter Island. So Easter Island is 8,000 people in population. Half of them are local Rapa Nui. It's a small island. This is our map of the region. When you get to the airport, Nayara Hangaroa is literally 3 minutes by car. We are walking distance to town. Actually, I think that's probably the best feature for them, is just their location.
Agreed.
And what you'll have here, a little bit more than 70 guest rooms. The property architecturally was inspired by a ceremonial village here called Orongo. And what you'll see here, the hotel has these circular roofs, grass rooftops, to kind of pay homage to the local Rapa Nui original town of Orongo. Tell me about your experience arriving at Easter Island. We were greeted by our awesome guide, Tico. What was your first impression as soon as you landed and you got to kind of get in that car and drive around? Who wants to go first?
I'll go. Yeah, Tico, was absolutely one of the most amazing guides I've ever had anywhere. That is just a complete asset at this hotel. He's amazing. Yeah, just warm, friendly, really wanted to tell us about the Rapa Nui. But yeah, the town itself was cuter than I was expecting. It's very close to the airport. As you can see, the hotel is very low impact. In fact, at one point, I remember we were up on a hill doing an excursion, and they were pointing down to the hotel, and we couldn't even see it because of the grasses on the roof.
Mm-hmm.
And the location I was blown away by, because you are near Hangaroa, the little town, which is about, I think it was a 10-minute walk, if that, depends on what part you're going to. But what you can't see here is you're directly across the street from the water, which I think that is just, a key point. Explora, you're much farther away from the water. Here, there's literally a little street, and you walk across, and the most amazing waves are just crashing right there against, the rocks. And, a lot of the rooms do have water views. And it's not just a typical water view, because you can see like the boats coming in, military vessels. It's an active view, if you will. But yeah, I loved it. I loved the view.
Thank you. What about you, Jen?
I would say I don't think I knew a ton about Easter Island before this trip. It was always kind of this bucket list experience in my mind, and probably more, I thought it would just be like a historical type trip where I'm learning about the Moai and the culture and how they came to be, and the Moai. And I think what my first impression was, which was a little bit surprising to me, was to your point that it's this Polynesian tropical island. So our guide greeted us with leis, and the vibes, you have this beautiful ocean with the waves crashing, and it's such a tranquil, peaceful place, reminiscent of visits that I've had to Hawaii and other places. So I think that was a little bit like a positive surprise in my mind, that, oh wait, this isn't just a cultural, historical bucket list trip. This is an amazing, tropical, relaxing island as well.
Thank you. And I think what surprised me the most is, well, first of all, I agree with you, Jen. I don't think a lot of us know much about Easter Island, with the exception of these beautiful stone structures called Moai, which we're looking at here. I was surprised how much I appreciated the culture and the local people. And because it's just 8,000 people that live there, after a few days, you feel like, wow, they really all know each other. Even as a guest,
you're just constantly waving as you're driving.
Yeah. And the local Rapa Nui people, they're just beautiful beings. They're good looking, of course. You can see just some of their images here, but they're smart, they're creative. They speak multiple languages. They sing, they do, they're very creative in so many aspects. In terms of the Moai, this is really the primary reason to come to Easter Island, is to learn about this rich history. There are over 900, Moais, which are what you see here, the headstones. Who wants to tell me about how they created these Moais? Jeff or Jen, either of you want to tell our viewers, how did they put these together? How did they make them? How did they erect them?
Sure. So
Go for it, Jen.
I heard some silence. So I'm going to do my best. So there is a very large volcanic rock quarry on the island, and they would carve the faces, the heads of these moai directly into the rock. Once they were loosely shaped, they would slide these giant, and I'm talking in the end, I think they're over 50 tons. So these massive, extremely heavy rock structures that they've carved out of the rock down the mountain and transport them all over the island, as sort of, I kind of think of them a little bit as like a headstone. It's a way to kind of memorialize someone who's passed at their burial spot. And they actually believe that the souls of the people who had passed were transported into these moai to protect and watch over the people who were still surviving.
Thank you, Jen. I thought it was a real wonder, and really hard to explain the mysticism and beauty of them until you see them in person. Of course, the photos here, really remarkable. But once you see that first moai, and once you go to that quarry, I think all of us got some chills when we were surrounded by all of these headstones, right? Aside from just learning about how they made the moais, we did a number of excursions. Jeff, you want to talk about some of the excursions that were special to you?
Yeah, I mean, not to harp on the Moai, but it is pretty amazing because what you don't realize is that they're all over the island. I mean, all over. Like the first one we saw, you're kind of like just in awestruck and in shock, and then you kind of realize they're all over, but you don't stop taking photos, and you're still fascinated by them. But yeah, but I mean, besides the Moai, I mean, we went to a beautiful little beach. We swam in the water. We did some hikes. The topography is pretty varied. Oh yeah, right here you can see the volcanic crater. We went to the Birdman village to learn about the cult of the Birdman. There are a lot of other things you can do besides just the Moai. But the Moai are, they're just amazing, and the different sites are different. And I think one thing I didn't expect until we really got there and really saw them was that they do differ in the way they look. Like the ones near the quarry are kind of like, if you will, the stereotypical emoji moai, the ones that literally look like with the more angular nose, and they literally look like the little Easter Island emoji. Whereas as you can see on some of these others here, they do have a different look to them. So that was interesting in learning about the timelines. The ones at the quarry, the ones that kind of people are most familiar with that look, are actually the newest, quote unquote, newest of them.
Thank you, Jeff. And then this bottom right photo is by the Orongo crater. You mentioned the Birdman, so I think we got to just talk about the Birdman just for 30 seconds. So the Birdman competition, an annual tradition that kind of determined the leader, right? So Jen, you want to talk to us about the Birdman competition?
Yes. So it's kind of like a mix between the Olympics and Hunger Games and a presidential election, all rolled up into one, is how I would describe it. One thing I didn't quite realize, along with these moai, was there were multiple tribes all over the island, indigenous tribes. And they would each, for this competition, they would each kind of send their best, strongest, most resilient warrior to compete against the same from all of these other tribes. And the competition itself consisted of scaling down this mountain into the ocean, like 1,000 feet. I don't remember exactly how high it was, something very dangerous. And then swimming to a nearby tiny island where there were these birds, and each of the warriors would have to try and compete to harvest the first of these birds' eggs, which represented fertility. and they needed to bring the egg back to the island, swim back, scale back up the mountain, and kind of the first one to do it, or really probably just the one who was alive at the end with the egg, won, and became the leader for that next year, kind of the entire island.
Yeah, what a remarkable story. They don't do that anymore, but they do celebrate it. They do have this annual celebration called the Tapati Festival, which takes place in February. So if you're looking to come to Easter Island at probably the most festive time, I would recommend the Tapati Festival. Just some more images of excursions that we have on Easter Island. I was really surprised by just how many surfers we saw around Easter Island. And we're talking about big, massive waves. And so if you have clients that are surfers, I definitely would recommend it here. And, you know, they're swimming along some rock formations, so quite thrilling. Tell me about wild horses. I think, Jen, you and I, when we arrived there, we were having lunch and we just started seeing these wild horses on the island. Tell me about the horses that you saw.
I don't know too much about horses, so I don't know specifics about the horses themselves, but I would say that was just like an unbelievably unique experience. And again, it was kind of right when we arrived, right near some homes that had, you know, some domestic dogs running around equally. There was just these wild horses playing with the dogs in the person's yard. And it was like, what a unique place where wild horses just roam and run. And I think it speaks to the magic of this island, how unique it is, how remote it is, and a lot of the surprises that we continued to see during our time there.
Thank you, Jen.
It's funny because it's almost like the Rapa Nui locals, where I mean the horses are just locals, and like everybody just knows them, and like, you know, we're sitting there eating, and like the waiter will be like, "Oh yeah, I know that horse," like just the way they would like get greeted any of their other friends every couple of minutes. Like it was like, "Oh yeah, we know. Oh yeah, we know that horse." As he just wanders by without an owner.
We didn't get to go diving, but definitely some diving excursions here. Jeff, you mentioned beaches. There are 2 beaches on Easter Island.
Sure.
One of them, we entered the water at Atacama Beach, and the water was quite dense, right? Like kind of like helped you ease into the ocean easily.
It's the one in the photo you have at the top in the middle.
Right. So there are beaches here. And I was really surprised by the topography, the perimeter of Easter Island, just having those volcanic stones. Our guide Tico, it was telling us about, oh, you can get sea urchins right here. And we're like, you can get sea urchins? And he came back and he just easily got us some fresh sea urchins, right, Jen? And just got to appreciate that. And if you love sea urchin like me, I mean, super, super fresh here. Let me show you just some images about the property, and then we're going to take some questions from Maggie. So here we already talked about the exterior being low impact, kind of reminiscent of this Orongo village, which you'll see on the bottom left here. The Orongo village is, you know, Jen mentioned the Birdman competition. So this is where the local Rapa Nui would live when they
The
won.
Olympic Village.
The Olympic Village. And so the property, Nayara Hangaroa, contemporary style setting, but really kind of embraced the natural materials, clay and volcanic stone. We already talked about the exterior being reminiscent of the local village. Tell me about just your comments about the guest rooms and suites, Jeff or Jen.
I loved the room. I said that right when we walked in. I said, I feel very comfortable in that piece here. I just thought the layout was really logical. I loved the warmth of how they brought in all these raw, natural, local materials that really kind of made me feel at home, but it still had a contemporary aesthetic. I loved that I could see the ocean right from my room. I felt, you know, very comfortable spot.
Thank you.
It's very organic. It's a very organic feeling. Flowing lines. There's no like, it's I mean, nothing against Edition hotels, which I love, but it's like the opposite of like the minimalist, you know, perfect 90-degree angles. It's like very organic and flowing with the wood and the stone.
Thank you, Jeff. Let's talk about dining just for a moment. You know, we talked about Atacama, just the multiple dining options you have or experiences you have there. Tell me about dining on Easter Island. What's one thing we want to share with our advisors and guests?
Anyone who loves fish or seafood, it's their haven. Everything was like
Me
fresh
too.
caught that morning, tuna, just delicious. I loved it.
I agree. Really fresh caught fish. When we were in town, we actually saw them, right? Just displaying their fresh caught fish for the locals to purchase. We like Atacama, we do have a number of package experiences at Hangaroa. So you have B&B, you also have half board here, full board or private. I thought our guides really made our stay. They were kind of the highlight across the board at Atacama and Easter Island. Let me ask one question before we take the Q&A from our guest attendees. Jeff, how many nights would you recommend for Easter Island?
I mean, what we did was perfect. I mean, I guess at least 2 full days, maybe 3 if you want to, you know, spend some time in town and relax. But yeah, at least I would say at least 3 full days.
Jen, any comments?
Yeah, I agree. I think like 3 nights is kind of perfect. The one thing I will note is, you know, she mentioned earlier that it's a humongous destination for scuba divers. And you all may know this, but when you're scuba diving, you typically need to wait like 24 hours before a dive to be from when you're on a plane and 24 hours after. So that's the only thing I would note. If you do have clients who want to dive, you may need to extend that another day to take that into account.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Wow. I thank you for reliving our excursions together with me. Maggie, why don't we open it up for Q&A? I know we're a little bit beyond our time limit, but let's take
so before we move on from Hangaroa, because some of the questions we got in were Atacama, but is there a ideal traveler for Hangaroa, or would you say all ages, all interests?
Yes.
Jen, answer. Jeff, go ahead.
That was a yes.
Yes.
No,
Yes.
I mean, it's definitely soft adventure. I mean, everything was accessible. I mean, I'm sure you can do some expert level hikes, like you want to go down into, you know, the volcanic crater or something, but I mean, everything is very, you know, accessible. Definitely soft adventure. I mean, someone of any physical level could do anything, and or at least see the moai in different, you know, like the quarry, you have to walk up a little, but there's other ones where you could, I mean, even, you know, in a wheelchair, you could probably like roll up right below them. So yeah, I mean, you can definitely experience it, you know, any age level.
I would say it's probably a little bit better for slightly older kids versus very, very young kids if you want to kind of make the most of these experiences and get to do some of the hikes and things like that, and make sure that your kids are like very comfortable during them.
Good feedback. So one of the questions we got regarding altitude at Atacama, is it an issue at the whole property, or just in all activities, or just the geyser excursion specifically?
You know, the property definitely is at a higher elevation. The geysers are at the highest. So the geysers are a must do. So we always put that excursion at your very last day so that your body's kind of climatized. So yeah, once you arrive there, take it easy on the first day. You know, that first excursion we always do on an easy level surface like the salt flats, and build up. You're ending your itinerary in Atacama with the high elevation of the geysers, but lots of water. I'm prone to a little altitude sickness myself, so just hydrating, making sure that you prepare ahead of time.
And can you recap
and listen
how
to your guides? Listen to your guide. I mean, they're the ones who are like,
the
they're
experts.
like, see red meat before the geysers. Don't drink red wine. You know, drink lots of water.
We didn't listen to the geysers. We paid for it.
Not. So we should listen to them.
Yes, listen to your guides. They know what's best.
And can you remind us how far the hotel is from the town?
Which hotel? Hangaroa?
Sorry, the Atacama. Sorry, these were.
Oh, sorry. So at Atacama, it's just a few minutes by car or bicycle ride. I'd say no, 10 minutes. 10
minutes max, depends on where you're from.
Hangaroa is in town. Walk from the hotel into town easily. I think we did that a few times. So yeah, easy access.
Well, that's all the questions we got, but I did want to remind everyone that the same team that you've gotten used to at reservations at Nayara in Costa Rica, this same team can assist you with all the planning for Chile, like Hangaroa and Alto Atacama. So they're very responsive, they're very helpful. They'll help you in assisting, kind of what days to do it and how to, if you want to pair them. They can also assist you with the intercountry flights. So just that team that you've grown to love and trust at Nayara is very helpful for these two properties as well.
I want to ask just one more question of my guest panelists. We talked about Atacama and Easter Island, but what else would you combine when you have a traveler that wants to come to South America? How would you incorporate this perhaps with other destinations? Jeff?
Well, I mean, Chile, there's so much to do. It's almost like you can't do it all unless you have someone who literally has weeks and weeks and weeks. So, I mean, I think people's natural predilection would be to pair it with Patagonia. But that's going to be a really long trip. But I mean, those are obviously going to be the two highlights. So if you have someone who, really wants to do it all, then yeah, I mean, Atacama and Patagonia. But I mean, you're looking at, the reality is you actually can't even do it from one end all the way to the other in a day. You're going to go back to Santiago. You're going to spend the night. It's another, 3 to 4 hour flight, down to Patagonia, depending on if you get the nonstop or not. Then you got a couple hours drive. So I actually think if you have someone who doesn't see it as I'm only going to Chile ever, once, and sees it as like open to visiting South America multiple times, I would do Atacama, a couple nights in Santiago, maybe go out to the wine country. There's a wonderful Vic property south of Santiago. Even Mendoza in Argentina. A lot of people don't realize Mendoza is closer to Santiago than it is to Buenos Aires. It's super easy, very quick flight. And then Easter Island. Yeah.
Thank you very much. A few items I want to make sure advisors all know. These two properties in Chile are part of leading hotels of the world. So in addition to Nayara Resorts team, you can book them through leading. Advisors also get 15% commission when booking direct. But of course, we welcome any bookings through your preferred operator or DMC. And really, our GMs are very hands-on at both hotels. So advisors, when you do make that reservation, reach out to our team. We'll connect you with our GMs and our individuals on property, help you start planning those excursions ahead of time for your travelers. I'll give the final word to my guests. So Jen, last final comments about your trip. Our trip
final comments are, I don't know. I'm a big Chile fan. I really push it to my clients. I had gone to Patagonia on a previous trip. It was the best trip I had ever taken. Then I went on this trip and I thought, oh, wow, like this is, those two are close. And I think that just speaks to Chile as a whole, just has so many destinations. These are two particularly beautiful destinations and resorts within those destinations. So, one of the best trips I've ever taken. Highly recommend it to any client, any other advisor.
Jeff, final comments?
Yeah, agreed. I mean, one of the best trips I've ever taken. This is my third time to Chile. And first time to Atacama, though. The other two times been Santiago and Patagonia. And I guess I didn't realize what I was missing. I mean, Atacama just blew my mind with the diversity. I kind of just thought, oh, it's salt flats and that's it. But I was blown away by it. And it's so different than Patagonia. So, I mean, you really, they are different trips. You should do both, if not the same trip, on different trips. Completely different experiences. It's not like if someone's been to Patagonia, they should be like, oh, well, I've done Chile. I mean, when you think about Atacama and Patagonia and Easter Island and the Lakes District and wine country, I mean, the diversity of the country is amazing. I mean, absolutely amazing. It does warrant multiple trips.
Thank you, my friends. Maggie, thank you as always. Advisors, contact us for any questions or how we can help you. But I agree, Jeff and Jen, it was probably one of the best trips I've taken myself. So thanks for joining me, and I hope everyone has a great day.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Bye, everyone.